Can't believe I've never told this story time, and I think it's literally because I blocked it out of my memory. When I was a senior in high school, I befriended a sophomore. She kind of felt familiar because I had originally been friends with her older sister. So it was me, the sophomore, and my best friend Layla. We became the ultimate trio. We did everything together. We hang out every single day. We literally all like lay in my bed and take naps together. We can call the sophomore Sarah. I knew she had a really bad home life. I knew that from knowing her older sister. The picture that she painted out to us was that she grew up with a single mother. Her dad was in prison. Her mom was low-key abusive, and she didn't get along very well with her older sister. But all in all, she was a really fun time. Like, I loved hanging out with her, and I felt really sorry for her. I kind of felt like a big sister in a way. She would always talk to me and Layla about her boyfriend Kevin. She told us that he lived down the street from her, that he was an escape for her anytime that she was having a hard time at her house. So she would go over to his, spend the night over there, and his mom was like totally fine with it. She would also talk to us all the time about her home life, how her dad was writing her letters from prison. She would also talk to us about how her older sister was pregnant with a drug dealer's baby. One night around midnight, Layla and I get a text from Sarah, and she's like, I need to talk to you guys first thing tomorrow morning. We get to school, she pulls us into the bathroom, and she drops the casual bomb that she's pregnant with Kevin's baby. Keep in mind, she's 16. Immediately, Layla and I go into friend mode. We're like, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be fine. What are you gonna do? She's like, I already scheduled an appointment at this clinic. I'm gonna get rid of it. While she's telling us this, she's actively hitting her VAPE and chugging a Red Bull. She's making all of these like sinister jokes about, well, I'm gonna kill it anyway. And Layla and I are like, okay, this is just her way of coping. We get through the rest of the school day. Layla and I go back to her house. We're laying in her bed. We're getting texts from Sarah. She's like, I'm gonna keep you guys updated. We're headed to the clinic right now. Kevin's with me. I don't know what really compelled us to do this, because as far as we knew, we hadn't been lied to by her before, but something in both of our guts was like, we should check her location. Lo and behold, she's not on her way to the clinic. She is sitting in her house. We start to get suspicious. We text her. We're like, what clinic are you going to? She tells us the name of this clinic. So me and Layla go look up the clinic. They close at 4. It's currently like 3:30. Meanwhile, Sarah's sending us pictures of the pregnancy test, being like, can't wait for this to be gone. She starts saying, oh, we just got to the clinic. Oh, we just got put back in the room. Kevin's with me. He's being so sweet. And of course, me and Layla are like, what the hell? So we text Sarah and we're like, oh, that's so weird. It looks like your location says that you're still at your house. Immediately, she stopped sharing location with us. So at this point, Layla and I can kind of put the pieces together. But we were also like, we kind of want to see how far she'll take this. She leaves us undelivered for like 30 minutes, but her snap score is still going up. She's just ignoring us. Eventually, she texts us back and she's like, it's done. I'm bleeding a lot. Kevin gave me a piggyback out of the office, and now he's taking me to work. And we're like, work? She worked at McDonald's at the time. She goes into great detail about how the procedure went down. We went on the website and we looked at how the procedure's done. Nothing like she described. She claims that she gets to work, that she's wearing a pad, that she's bleeding everywhere, but she's got to work because she desperately needs the money, whatever. We also start to look at the picture of the pregnancy test that she sent us a little bit closer. In the picture, the girl holding the test is wearing a ring. Sarah never wears rings. So being the little detectives that we are, we start to put the pieces together and we're like, well, her older sister actually is pregnant. So we go look at the older sister's Instagram. That's her ring, baby. At this point, Layla and I are like, we should probably reach out to Kevin because all of these lies are being spread about him as well. So we get on Instagram. We'd never met Kevin before. Kevin went to a different school. We go into his DMs. We DM him. We say, hey, is Sarah okay? He was like, oh, I know, this must be so hard on her. But we're still like, ugh, this feels fishy. So we go, can we call you? And he's like, yeah, sure. We get on the phone with Kevin. Totally nice, normal guy, by the way. His first question is, how is she doing? Layla and I are like, shouldn't you know? Weren't you at the clinic with her? Isn't this like your baby? There's probably a 30-second pause, and I think he was just in such disbelief. Kevin goes, and I repeat, I have never met Sarah in my life. I don't even live in Oregon. I've never stepped foot in Oregon. I live in Arizona and I met Sarah online. We're freaking out. We're like, can you tell us everything that Sarah's like ever told you about her life? Literally every single aspect of her life that she has painted out to us. Single mother, dad in prison, where she works, the natural color of her hair. Everything is different than what she has told Kevin, her online friend that she's never dated, never been to his house, and slept over there when her mom was being mean. The reason he had asked us if she was okay was because she had told him she had been sexually assaulted, gotten pregnant, and had to go to a clinic. We start swapping stories and putting so many pieces together. She's lied about her job. She's lied about where she's lived. She's lied about her wealth, her house, her sister, her mom, her dad. So this girl that we've been friends with for months, literally that person didn't exist. Genuinely, how do you do that? I understand a little white lie here and there, but to lie to that extent is wild. Also, if you're gonna spread lies about yourself, why would you want the lies to be A, that you were sexually assaulted, or B, that you were pregnant at at 16 years old. I understand wanting attention, but you can get good attention. It doesn't have to be bad. But Layla and I are like genuinely maybe a little scared of her. And so we're kind of trying to like figure out what to do here. And ultimately what we landed on was that we were never going to confront her about it. And we just stopped hanging out with her. And the trio became a duo. And then of course I get on the internet and I air all of her dirty laundry. So Layla and I have been sitting on this secret for about 4 years now. And I just had to tell someone. Pathological liars are the scariest people in the world. They're 10 times worse than any narcissistic man. And I stand by that.
I used to work at this bar in Wisconsin, and there was this one guy that would always come in, and he was super, super, super nice. He came in with a group of his friends one night. One of his friends kept flirting with me. He was super nice, super tall. And I figured if he's friends with this nice guy, then he's probably nice too, honestly. He ended up taking me on a really nice date in the city. We went to a museum, and then we went to this cocktail lounge to grab a cocktail, and we split like a little dessert over there. It was really fun. After that, we started texting all the time, and he was kind of shy and nerdy, but I honestly didn't really mind it. I kind of liked that he was like that. I did not background check him before we went on the date, which normally I do, but it would not have mattered anyways because he gave me a fake name. Some weird things about him. First of all, he would never ever eat anything, ever. He would always talk about how he's not a picky eater and how he's such like a big eater and how he eats so much, but this guy was stick thin and he would never eat around me. He always had an excuse, whether he was allergic, had just ate, like he said that he had a cinnamon allergy or something like that, and I was like, who has a cinnamon allergy? And we were eating pizza, and the biggest thing that he would say is that the doctor had him on a specific diet where he couldn't eat it. I tried to ask him a little bit more about the doctor's situation because he seemed to have some really weird health stuff going on, but he didn't really want to talk about it, and since we had just met, I just respected that and said okay. But then he just started using the doctor as an excuse for a lot of just really weird things. The only thing that he would consume around me was chocolate milk. He told me that he was a very big milk drinker and that he was trying to put on weight, and so one of the things that he was doing was drinking a lot of milk, and I thought he just meant regular milk, but he was chugging a gallon of chocolate milk every single day. He also started being very performative, which I started to find really weird, but I figured he was just trying to impress me and was just trying to let it slide to spare his feelings and not say like, hey, you're really embarrassing yourself by trying to impress me. Because he would send me like history articles. This happened just one time that he sent me a history article, random war in history, and he was like, yeah, I'm at the bar right now, but I'm reading this and like it's really cool and it's really interesting. And I'm like, first of all, the article was just like a snippet of something really random. There was nothing interesting in the article. I'm like, you definitely could have found something way cooler and way more interesting to be performative with. I would be able to get him to go out, but he never wanted to go anywhere where there would be anybody our age, which later it's because they knew more about him than I did. He did not want me finding out. He would go to dinner or go to cocktails like 15 minutes away from where like I lived and where our little like neighborhood kind of like was. Or he would always want to stay in and like play board games or watch a movie or like cook dinner, but then he wouldn't actually eat it. He would let me waste so much and he would just throw it away. But he did not want to be seen in public, and he did not want to go out to bars, to dinner, for walks. The one time we went on a walk, I started walking towards like downtown where I would normally always every single day go for a walk, and he went the other direction. He was like, let's walk this way. Okay. Mind you, all of this happened in a very short period of time. I still barely know this guy, and he asked me a hypothetical question on if we were like still together a year and a half from then, if I would move to Phoenix with him, because he said that he might have to move to Phoenix for work. And I replied, I was like, I don't know how I would possibly know that, like I have no idea. Like I was very weirded out by it, and I was like, I guess hypothetically if we were still dating in a year and a half, I would probably think about it. Like, and he also was asking me about meeting his parents. At that point, I kind of flipped out on him a little bit because I was like, I don't want to meet your parents this early. Like, I keep telling you that I want to move slow, and you keep on saying all these very not slow things. I want to make sure that we're something serious before we ever even talk about meeting parents. Like, what? Then that brings us to when everything happened. It was my birthday, and he was talking nonstop about how he was super excited for my birthday. He would talk about how it was going to be the best birthday ever, and he was going to like make sure of that, and he was going to make everything so special, and how he couldn't wait to see all my friends because they were all coming to visit me. We were all going out for my birthday, and he said that he was going to be with us the whole night. And he doesn't actually show up until way later, And then he was only there for about 2 seconds before he said, oh, like, my friend's over here, I need to go help him with something quick. I'm like, what do you mean? He just kept disappearing, and finally I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna hang out with my friends. But obviously all of their boyfriends were there too, so now I'm like seventh wheeling on my own birthday. And after he disappeared for the whole entire rest of the night, I ended up telling him, I was like, hey, that was really not cool that you ditched me on my birthday. I can't believe that you would do that. That was really weird of you to promise that you would be there the whole night. You completely disappear for no reason at all. So then he ended up promising that he would make it up to me on my real birthday, which was on that Monday. He told me that he had an entire romantic day planned for us that day, and that he was going to make the entire day just so special. And he kept hinting that he was going to get me like a gift, which I was not expecting a gift because we had just started seeing each other, so I wasn't like concerned about that. But he kept on telling me that he was going to get me a gift and was asking for my shoe size, what perfumes I liked. He promised me that he had something special planned for the entire day and that we were going to spend the entire day together on my birthday. He didn't end up showing up to my apartment until 4 p.m. that day, and I was texting him all day. I was like, where are you? Like, what are we doing? Can you tell me what the plans are? My mom wants to buy me tickets to go see this show, but if you have something planned, like if we already have plans, you need to let me know right now and I'll tell her not to get them. And he said, I have so many plans, like tonight's gonna be so special, don't get the tickets. He shows up at 4 p.m. and asked me why I'm so dressed up, and I was like, it's my birthday, first of all. Second of all, I wasn't even very dressed up, and I was like, do we not have plans? Like, should I not be ready for something? The surprise was to take me to his parents' farm and meet his parents and his grandparents. The one thing that I said I absolutely did not want to do. I was so angry. I was trying not to cry. I was literally just trying to make the best of it. And after I finally got us to leave his parents' house and his grandparents' house, then he decided to take me for a tour of his hometown and proceeded to talk about himself for the entire night. Me, his school, where he used to play sports, and like where he used to hang out with friends. And I was like, it's my birthday. I don't know why we're doing this today. Can we literally do this tomorrow? Like, what is the surprise for me? Or is today just all about you? And at this point, it was starting to get really, really late. And so I asked him if he had dinner reservations for anywhere, because we were supposed to be going to dinner at least. He promised that we for sure would go to dinner because he knew that I was starting to get kind of mad at that point. He never had any dinner reservations anywhere, and he was going to bring me to a restaurant that was closing in a half hour. And I said, absolutely not. We're not walking in a half hour before close. I was like, take me to the store real quick. You get me like some steaks and vegetables or something, and you're gonna cook for me. He proceeds to complain the entire night that I'm mad at him, even though I was still being super nice and still trying to make the best of it because I did not want my birthday to be ruined. He cooks the dinner, refuses to eat it, and that was the end of the night. I decide the next day that I'm going to do a birthday do-over with just myself, and I take myself to a neighboring town that has a very fancy shopping center, and I take myself shopping, out to a nice meal. And honestly, I was starting to have a really good time just by myself, but then he started blowing up my phone. I told him that I was busy and that I needed space, and that I just really did not want to talk to him after how he had behaved the night before. He started blowing up my phone and acting so crazy that I told him, honestly, it's just best that we don't see each other anymore. I just met you. There's already so much going on. Like, we're done. This is not happening. You and I are not happening. And that's where everything got crazy. He started blowing up my phone like crazy on every single social media platform, on TikTok, Instagram, Visco, would create new accounts after I had blocked an old one, Facebook, phone number, left handwritten letters at my door once I had blocked him on everything, sat on my porch waiting for me to come out, watched me through the window while I was at work from across the street, and would text me on Visco, because that was the only thing that was left unblocked, and would text me on Visco saying, wow, you look so beautiful today. He would follow me in his car while I was on my daily walks. I would turn around and I would always see him, and he would always try and duck down as if he wasn't 6'5" and I couldn't see him. All of my friends and my friends' boyfriends also had to block him because he was also trying to blow up their phones, trying to get them to tell me to unblock him. That's when we found out his real name, found out that he has 5 restraining orders against him and is not allowed to have any kind of device that has video or picture taking capabilities because he was taking pictures of women. He wasn't present on social media because he legally wasn't supposed to be. Don't even get me started on what the text said.
Dating horror story. Not really a horror story, but just like it's horror for me. I decided to give Hinge a chance. Now, typically I use Hinge as my little fan club. I log in, I swipe, I'm like, oh my God, attention, woohoo, it's fun. I log off, I got my fix for the day. Matched with this man and he looked like super familiar. I was like, why does this man look so familiar? That's kind of why I matched with him in general. We're like yapping and chatting. And then he was like, I want to follow you on Instagram. I'm like, okay, whatever. I was also in this era of if I don't say yes to dates, I'm never going to meet a man that's actually like normal and good. So I'm going to say yes to the date. So I let him follow me on Instagram. I look at our DMs. This man has DM'd me before, like swiped up on my stories. You're so hot, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, oh, okay. This man has been working for this for a little bit. So you know what? I will go on a date with him because he's been trying. Like, let me reward a little effort here. So I'm like, okay, yes, I'll go on a date with you. We are like yapping nonstop for a week. One of the days I was really down bad. I hardly slept the night before. He was like, I really want to send you a coffee. I was like, I'm not going to give this man my address. I'm not going to let this man know where I live. And I feel like weird, like allowing someone to send me a coffee. And then I realized, I remembered in my head, I let other men treat me like shit. So why can't I let this random man send me a coffee? Why not? So I let him send me a coffee. Things in my brain, I'm like, wow, he's a really nice guy. Like, things are going great. Like, he's really putting an effort in. He really wants to take me on this date. I'm allowing him to put effort in. He's texting me. He's calling me. He's asking me how my day is. And then he was like, I feel like we should FaceTime before we go on a date. Okay. I think that's weird. Okay. I was getting like, oh, he thinks I'm a catfish vibes. And I know other people are going to be like, it's not weird to have like a little conversation before the date, but we were having phone call conversations and I'm also very awkward. So I was like, okay, FaceTime. Like I have to sit there with my phone propped up and like, I have to like force conversation, you know, like the awkward FaceTimes where you feel like you have to like say things and you don't really know somebody that well. So you are like making sure there's no awkward silence. So we have our little FaceTime call. It goes great. Sure. I'm like comfortable. I'm like, okay, like I could see myself like not having to take 4 glasses of Sauvignon Blanc to the face before meeting this man. Vibes are good. We get to the day before. We get to Thursday. We're supposed to go on our date on Friday. We get to Thursday. On Thursday, he's like, yeah, I feel like we should just, you know, like hang out at my house on Friday. I was like, absolutely not. I'm not, in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to your home. I don't fucking know you. I'm not going to your home. So he's like, I feel like we should just like hang out at my house, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh no, like I would actually love to like go out for drinks before and then like we could, you know, split off, do our own thing. Like I gave options. I was like, we can do dinner, we can go out for drinks, like we can meet up with my friends, we can make it a group thing. He's like, okay. Friday rolls around. I don't really hear from him. I hear from him, which it's a rule for me. If I don't hear from you before noon, it's not happening. The date's not happening. I end up hearing from him around noon and he's not like checking in and being like, hey, like we have a reservation for this time. We're gonna go here, blah, blah, blah. Are you good? Like, da-da-da-da-da. Not saying that. And someone on here is gonna say I'm difficult, but it's not hard. If you were going to a lunch date with a coworker or a friend, you would confirm before. You would confirm the reservation. You would make sure your friend is still down. It's not weird for a man who's taking me on a date to confirm. Noon rolls around and he's having a conversation with me, but he's not like, hey, we're still on for tonight. We're going here. I have no idea what restaurant we're going to, whatever. I'm already getting weird vibes. And in the back of my head, I'm already like, okay, I'm not loving this. So I'm going to prepare to make other plans for my Friday. It gets to be like 3 o'clock and he's like, why don't you come to my house for a drink before? And I was like, oh, he already asked me this yesterday. So I was a little bit annoyed. I wasn't gonna make it a problem, but in the back of my head, I was like, okay, like this is annoying. I was a little bit annoyed. So I was very polite. I said, oh, I think it would just be better if we met for dinner or drinks before we're in each other's space, just because we don't know each other that well. And overall, in the back of my head, I'm thinking like my general safety. I'm not going to go to a man's home that I have never met before. That's not who I am. That's not what I'm doing. I politely decline. We keep talking. The rest of the day is fine. And then he asks me again. He's like, I really just want you to come over for a drink before. And now I'm like getting like, number one, you're not listening to my no. And automatically, like, I'm so sick of dealing with men who don't fucking listen to my no and push me. I politely declined not once, not twice, but I'm pretty sure 3 times because I also declined on FaceTime as well. I told you I'm not coming to your house before the date. I was very polite about it. I just want to meet you in person. It's really not that weird. And if you don't want to plan a date, don't fucking plan a date. Don't ask me to go on a fucking date. Like, just wanted me to go to your house. Just ask me to pull up to your house. Don't do this whole bullshit. I politely decline again. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get ready at my friend's house. I'm going to have a drink at hers before I meet you. Radio silence. Radio silence. I'm like, okay. So I didn't hear from him for a half an hour. So I called my friend. I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm not going on this date. Let's just plan to go out elsewhere. Then I had not heard from him. So automatically I was like, you're a freak. Me and my friend end up going for drinks at Wally's. And as I'm telling my other friend this story, she's like, well, what does he look like? I go to pull up his Instagram. He blocked me. He blocked me and he blocked my number and he like unadded me or whatever the fuck on Hinge. So I was like, you're a serial killer. You are a fucking weirdo. You are so weird. It was just so bizarre to me. And that's why I'm never going to use Hinge again. And I'm never going to ever talk to anybody on there again because it was just so weird. And here I am thinking I'm taking a little chance and I'm going to be social and go on a date. And that happens. Yeah, not my vibe. And also super weird. And all I can say is it was giving red flags. And I'm really proud of myself for not giving into the red flags because I love a little toxic moment. But he was like kind of making me uncomfortable and scaring me. So I didn't end up going on a date with him, obviously. And mind you, this man was in my DMs. In my DMs begging for me to just give him a grain of attention. That's why I'm not gonna date in 2026. Especially in Los Angeles. Bizarre. Bizarre.
Recap a first date with me. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Caroline. I am a 30-year-old single Christian girl from Oklahoma City, and I have never had a boyfriend before. And so if you have been following along on my page on my dating journey this past year in particular, I'm really happy you're here. And if you're new here, I am glad that you have stopped to watch this video. So a couple weeks ago, I was just talking with some friends and actually one of the pastors at my church, and he was just talking about kind of this younger generation of men that is a little bit younger than me, and just some qualities and some great things that he is seeing in them. And so I just took a couple days kind of just to pray about it and was like, you know, it doesn't hurt. And so I dropped my age on Hinge by 2 years. I also increased it by a couple years. I turned 30, so I was like, okay, I feel like I could up it a little bit, but really I was kind of focusing on, you know, maybe I am missing out on finding my guy just because I am not even seeing him on the apps. So one night I'm like, okay, I'm dropping my Hinge age to 25, and 5 years younger, I was like, oh gosh, like I don't really know what to think about that, but I was like, I'm just gonna give it a shot and just, I have hope maybe something could come of it. And so literally the next day I get a match from this guy, and I was like, oh my gosh, like he is really cute and seems to love Jesus and all this stuff. And actually his first photo was of him hunting, and that's just not something I'm like super into, never been, like, you know. And so a lot of times I almost automatically am like no on a guy like that. But I was like, okay, Caroline, like let's think about this, let's give someone a chance. And so I matched with him, and you guys will never believe this. He messages me almost immediately after I matched with him, in all caps. He's like, Caroline, do you know who I am? And he was like, I think our brother and sister were friends growing up. If we ever met, it was whenever I was a little kid. And oh, I was like, oh no, is this like our age gap showing? I was like, not the little kid thing. And so I went back to his photos, and I immediately recognized him. We spent about a week talking to each other, give or take a little bit, I can't really remember. And then he told me that he actually doesn't live in Oklahoma City, but that he was gonna be in the area in our hometown for Thanksgiving, and asked if I was gonna be in town and if we could get coffee. And so anyway, we talked a little bit throughout that week or so, had our coffee date planned, and I was getting really excited to meet him. We both were like, we don't know if we've met before or if we haven't, and just were in places in passing. Like we literally went to the same high school, the same college, we were in the same youth group, but because of our age gap, we never were in those things together. But like I knew his brother really well just because he was friends with my sister and dated someone I knew and some things like that. And so like I know his mom, just kind of a really small world moment. So now that I've touched on the background of this guy, I'm going to talk about our actual first date. So it was the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and we were trying to figure out how our schedules would align, just with both of us being with family and things like that. And so literally 9:30 a.m. coffee on a Saturday was like the only time we could do. I've never done a date that early, but honestly it was fun. Like I love going to coffee shops, and to start my day like that, like I thought it was gonna be a great time. We both get there, we're running a couple minutes late, which is not my personality, and come to find out it's not his personality either, which is a green flag in my book. But we were stuck by a train, and we were both texting like, oh my gosh, you know, we're stuck, and I found a way around it and he was waiting, so I ended up getting there before him. But we had talked about meeting out front before the date, and so as soon as we both parked, we both just kind of walked that way. And I feel like that is always really nice, just to kind of ease any nerves or anxiety of like trying to find your date like at the restaurant or at the coffee shop or wherever you're meeting, just to like communicate and be like, hey, would love to just like meet you out front, we can walk in together. And then not everyone's kind of looking at you too, like, oh, is this the first date? It's like, okay, you've already greeted each other out front, which I just feel like helps in my book. Because it was early in the morning, literally the coffee shop was dead silent. I mean, my worst nightmare on a date, or even just having a conversation like with a friend whenever the place is just quiet. And so they had kind of a hallway with some like comfier chairs, and so we sat out there because everyone in there was like studying or things like that. And so we sat out there. I thought it was really funny because he is like a coffee guy, and he ordered a vanilla latte, and I got a cortado with honey because I was like, oh, I need to kind of be like cool, like I can't get a vanilla latte. But he was like, I don't make them at home. He makes like pour overs and stuff like that. And so he was like, I always like to get a latte whenever I'm out and about, which is good justification. But we have just laughed about that so many times, that just our coffee orders. But we went and sat in two of like the comfy chairs and just had good conversation, like actually getting to know each other, talking about our families, things that we knew about each other, just all of that. And it was really fun. We were just sitting in the chairs, and I honestly don't know how much time had passed. I want to say maybe an hour or so, but I never wear a watch, especially on beginning dates with guys, just because I don't want to look at it and give them like a false sense that I'm not interested or that I'm in a rush or something. I just want to see how long it goes and not be worried about the time commitment. And so we were sitting out there, and then he kind of was like, okay, well, like there is a booth spot like open in the coffee shop, like would you want to move in there so then I can like sit across from you and like see you, whatever. And I was like, okay, yeah. So we move in there, and then it was so funny. At one point he was like telling a story, and I was like, I have got to go to the bathroom, but like I'm not trying to like fail, like leave or end this. And he was like, oh my gosh, like I've had to go too. So we like both get up, go, come back. We probably sat down for another like 45 minutes or something like that. Like we were together a while for a first date, especially at a coffee shop. But he was having Thanksgiving plans with his family that afternoon and his brother that I actually know. And so anyway, we ended up leaving the date. So we talked a little bit that afternoon, but he was with family, and so I wasn't really expecting to hear from him that much, obviously. That night I texted him and I was like, I was gonna make dinner, but now I think I'm gonna get something. And he was like, okay, not Italian, right? Like, what about Mexican? So I was like, oh, you were listening, like, of my favorite things. And we didn't even talk about Mexican food. I'm just not the biggest Italian food person. I know that's criminal. And so then he was like, well, like, would you want to get a marg tonight? I was like, wait, really? Like, hold up. What is happening? Like, are we about to go on our second date in one day? And I'll leave that information for a next video, because we did indeed go on a second date the same night as our first date. So anyway, I am still putting myself out there. It has been truly, just looking back on this year and dating, I have just seen the Lord throughout. And something that came up a couple months ago was just having hope that God does have someone for me. And that has truly just shifted my perspective so much and continued to make me put myself out there, be confident in who I am and the type of guy that I'm looking for. And yeah, I just hope that this is an encouragement to anyone else who is getting out there and dating and putting yourself out there for the first time, that it is worth it. It's hard work, but it is fun along in the process. So stay tuned. Have a third date with me. Hi, my name is Caroline, a 30-year-old single Christian girl from Oklahoma City, and I'm going to tell you about my third date. So it was a couple weeks ago, and I decided that I was going to go and visit him where he is living, which is like an hour and a half, almost exactly, from my house to his house, which is really nice. And he had planned just kind of a morning for us, and so I went to church in Oklahoma City, and then I headed up to Tulsa. When I got to Tulsa, I was like, okay, I don't know if I should like go up to the door or text him whenever I got there. So I ended up texting him when I pulled up, and he opened the door and we got out and hugged each other, and he was like, you know, do you want to come in and see the house? And so I got to see his house, and it's very like that 70s show vibe, like mid-century modern, very boy coded, but also really cute too. And so we did that, and then we headed to brunch. I thought it was really sweet because he knows I love like aesthetic things and girly things, and so he was like, I picked like a girly brunch spot for you, like I hope you like it. And so we went there, and it was adorable. It was really cute, and I have several friends that live in Tulsa, and they were like, oh my gosh, he picked a great spot. So that was really fun. After we had brunch, we went over to the Philbrook Museum, which if you're in Oklahoma, you probably know what that is, but just a beautiful spot. Honestly, I know so many people who have gotten engaged there or taken engagement photos and stuff like that there. Just a beautiful old mansion that has been turned into a museum, and then the outside is just beautiful. It was freezing cold that day, but we made the most of it. Super gloomy, and we walked around the museum, and it was just fun, like, I don't know, doing something like that with a boy for the first time and not just like my friends or my family. And it was just sweet, us both picking out different pieces of art that we liked or which room we liked better. And we both love taking photos, and so it was just sweet to do that kind of throughout the museum. And yeah, it was a great time. The favorite parts whenever we were at the museum, there was this room, and it had a painting of like an interesting pig, and then also a painting of like a house with a really cool table. And so we started just observing the painting, and we sat down and just got to have like a little sweet moment there. And we had been sitting there for a while, and so the lights like turned off, and so we had to kind of like move around to get the lights back on. But yeah, that was probably one of my favorite moments, just sitting there with him. After that, we kind of just drove around Tulsa. He showed me some of the houses that he has lived at. We went to his work, and he got to tell me a little bit more about what he does and his coworkers and all of that sort of stuff, which was just really cool to see because he has a way different job than I do. And it's just been fun to learn about the things that he does and his hobbies. He has a lot of them that I don't know a lot about. And so it's just been really fun to learn something new. After that, we were trying to decide, we were like, do we have an early dinner? Do we like go to a coffee shop? What should we do? And there was a super cute coffee shop like right down the street, and so he was like, I think you'll like it. We ended up going there, and it was packed, but there was an outdoor portion, and we were bundled up in our coats, and they had some heaters out there, and so we ended up getting our, you guessed it, vanilla lattes, and we sat outside for a while and just got to talk a little bit. I really enjoyed our conversation at the coffee shop because we kind of just talked realistically, like, okay, how are we gonna make this work? And like being long distance, and how often would we want to see each other, and just a lot of conversations that I've never had with someone before on a date. And it was really great just how he led that conversation, and I feel super safe and comfortable with him. He is very patient and kind, and so yeah, I just really enjoyed that time with him at the coffee shop. After that, we drove by some Christmas lights that were just crazy. There were so many people waiting to get in line, and you can drive through them or you can walk through them, so that was kind of cool to see. And then after that, we headed back to his house, and I was like, I am still in my church clothes. I want to change just before I head home, because at this point it was like 7:30 and we had been together since around noon. And so we had talked about, you know, that I was going to try to head home around 8:30 because I had work the next day, and I did not want the day to end. It was really great just getting to spend that much time with him and getting to see the place that he lives. Funny because I came outside of his room like after I had changed into my Uggs and my sweatpants to drive home, and he kind of was like, "Look, I made a fire," and he had lit a fire in his living room, which was just so sweet. And so we just sat there for a little bit, and then it was finally time to head home. Girl, it was a great date. I had just a wonderful time. And in my next video, you'll get to hear about our basically 2-day date, our 4th and our 5th date. So stay tuned for that. I just wanted to say thank you. We just hit 5,000 followers on here, which I know to some people isn't that big of a deal, but to me, someone who has been vulnerable on the internet and just sharing my story with dating and growing up with no romantic attention and experiencing all these things for really the first time the past couple years. I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting my journey, and just a reminder that we're all human and you're only seeing truly just a snapshot of my life and my dating life. So just keep that in mind, and would love for your comments to say just kind, because I really appreciate that. So to all of you who have DM'd me in the past couple weeks, I really appreciate it. I'm so glad that you feel encouraged by my story and singleness and waiting and dating and all of the things. I just want to remind you that you are worthy of being loved and to keep putting yourself out there. So until next time.
Hey, so I got pregnant 8 years ago, or 9 years ago, and this is what happened. I was a healthy 125-pound girl who suddenly got pregnant, and I was sick immediately. Like, I didn't even have to take a pregnancy test because I already knew. Literally day 4 of conception, and my head was already in the toilet for the next 9 months after that. So basically, at the time, I didn't have a car, and I worked 2 miles away from my house. I used to ride a bike or walk or ride the city bus to work. It was about 2 miles. It wasn't too bad. So I get pregnant, right? And then I'm getting sick every day. I'm not able to keep anything down, and I'm still working pretty much full time at this point. You know, just kind of muddling through it as best I can. A lot of doctor visits, honestly. My first issue was finding a proper gynecologist. I don't know what it was about my first doctor's appointment of getting a gynecologist or, you know, like a maternity doctor of some sort. But I got denied like 3 or 4 times. Which, I don't, maybe it has something to do with my insurance, I don't know. But I finally find a gynecologist to, you know, do my pregnancy care. And at this point, I was probably like 2 months, 3 months pregnant. And they kept doing ultrasounds on me, and they couldn't figure out how far along I was because I didn't start my care with them, you know? It had been months at this point. I kept telling them I knew the exact date that my pregnancy was conceived, and they just wouldn't really listen. And like, while we're on the subject, why do we measure pregnancy by the start of your last period? Shouldn't you be asking them when your next period should have started and didn't to measure pregnancy, considering, you know, ovulation starts like 4 or 5 days before you start your cycle, and then that's when you conceive? Why would I be conceiving a month earlier than I actually conceived? And like, why are we measuring it that way? I never understood that. So anyway, they kept telling me I was more far along than I knew that I was by like 2 or 3 weeks. And then, you know, I wasn't able to eat. I couldn't eat. I couldn't keep my prenatals down. I couldn't even keep water down, dude, for months. But, you know, they did scans and ultrasounds, saw that the baby was fine and was growing fine. So they just weren't really concerned with what I was going through, like, which was hell. And then I noticed that I started going into these doctor's appointments. They didn't really tell me what was going on, right? But I started going to these doctor's appointments weekly. And this was my one and only pregnancy, so I did not know this was abnormal. But apparently I was a high-risk pregnancy, and they just didn't tell me. And that was probably why I kept getting rejected by gynecologists too. But nobody told me that I was a high-risk pregnancy or why. So I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was normal to get ultrasounds literally every 2 weeks while pregnant. I got a shitload of a collection. So I'm going further along. I was probably about, 6 months pregnant at this point, and still sick every day, still struggling, barely eating my entire pregnancy, and then they weighed me. Now, mind you, I was like around 125 pounds when I got pregnant. At this point, when they weighed me, I was 189 pounds. Tell me how that fucking works. Again, it was my first pregnancy, so I didn't think anything of it, but the doctor, she had a lot to say about it. She shamed me. She told me that I need to eat less, that that it's not necessary for me to gain this much weight, that I don't need to gain a lot of weight for pregnancy. And I kept telling her over and over again that I'm like barely eating and I'm walking to work almost every day, 2 miles. So like, I don't understand why I'm gaining so much weight. She shamed me, said that I was like pre-diabetic. I didn't know what to do at that point, so I just kept gaining weight. And I'm sure you out there with pre-eclampsia, this probably sounds familiar to you, doesn't it? But no, I was never diagnosed with pre-eclampsia or anything like that. But one day I got a call from my doctor's nurse assistant telling me when my induction was scheduled. Which when she called me, it was like 4 days before my induction. And she told me that my induction was that Friday. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that my induction was this soon. I was at work when she called me. So while she's giving me my induction date, she throws in there that I'm a high-risk pregnancy, so they gotta get this baby out of me, basically. And I was like, hold on. I was like, I'm a high-risk pregnancy? Why? Why am I a high-risk pregnancy? And then she was like, oh my God, nobody told you? And I was like, no, nobody told me. But like, what's wrong with me? Why am I a high-risk pregnancy? Apparently, I had something called a uterine growth disorder, where basically it means that my baby was growing, but my uterus wasn't. So I was measuring at like 6 months pregnant, and I was actually like more like 8 or 9 months pregnant. And yeah, I don't know, they were really concerned about that, I guess, but they never fucking told me. So yeah, I mean, I went home and did some research about that, because I didn't know what the fuck it was, and I learned what it was through my own means. And then it's induction time, and I go to the hospital. I'm in labor for like between 10 and 12 hours, from them giving me the Pitocin to actually pushing out the baby. It was probably about 12 hours. And then the baby is delivered, and everything's fine. And then he goes to his 1 month checkup. Now, mind you, he went to 2 other checkups before this 1 month wellness checkup. But he goes to this 1 month checkup after he's born, and the doctor notices some sort of calcium or like scar tissue on his clavicle. Apparently, they broke his fucking clavicle on the way out of me while I was delivering, and then nobody even noticed. Now, granted, he would get dressed and everything, and he was not a crying newborn. Like, he cried when he wanted something, or when he was cold or hungry or had a wet diaper, and I would get on it and he would stop crying, but he never seemed uncomfortable, right? So I didn't notice. And the doctors who checked him out and everything didn't notice. I guess the people, I don't know how they didn't realize that they broke his clavicle while they were delivering him, but I digress. Luckily, they did x-rays to see that it healed properly by itself, but if it did not, they would have had to re-break it. My 2-month-old baby, they would have had to re-break his clavicle and then set it properly because nobody fucking noticed it. And then years later, I'm sitting here like looking up pre-eclampsia and everything, and I don't understand. I feel like I might have had pre-eclampsia. I feel like they misdiagnosed me. I feel like they mishandled me during the delivery. I mean, I feel like they induced me too early. He had hair all over his body. And some people, I've gotten mixed suggestions on whether he might have been early or maybe he was even late. I don't know. I've been frustrated about this for a long time, and like I'm really bothered by the fact that instead of taking it as a red flag that I had gained 65 pounds while not eating anything, basically, literally just eating enough to fucking keep my baby alive if I can handle it. And that wasn't a red flag to my doctor. She kind of was just like, bitch, why are you getting so fat? Like, I don't know, ho, you tell me. I don't know, it's just been a couple years, and the more I think about it, the more I see people in similar situations get different care, I just get more angry about it. Can a doctor or something tell me if this sounds not good or if I'm just being dramatic?
When I tell you, I never, ever in a million years could have thought I'd be sitting down telling you this story. My name is Kaya. I'm 23 years old, and I found out I was pregnant in my 3rd trimester, and my whole life completely changed after that. I had been living in Hawaii for about a year and a half now. The whole time I was there, I always stayed active. I picked up running, was training for a half marathon. Other than running, I was surfing every single day for hours and hours, sunrise to sundown. Some of you could say I was quote-unquote living my best life, and it sure did feel like it. Back in April, around the time I was training for the half marathon, I started getting a really, really bad hip injury. It was like a nerve down my right hip all the way down to my leg. Anyways, that caused me to stop being active like completely. I went from running and working out every single day to not at all. Like at all. So between April and early October, I pretty much spent every single day in a bikini. And it wasn't until I put on like normal clothes is when I started noticing like my fluctuation on my weight. Mind you, it was never enough weight to know that I was pregnant. It was just more uncomfortable weight. All my clothes still fit me normally. It was just a little bit uncomfortable. Also, pause for this fat disclaimer because I know a lot of you guys are thinking this one question in your head. What about your period? My period was not the top of my concern because for as long as I can remember, I have always had irregular periods. So that wasn't the first thing I was thinking about. Also, I knew my period was going to be weird because I went from being so active to like not active at all. Anyways, moving on. Throughout that whole time, the whole 7 months, I had never had any normal pregnancy symptoms. I was never nauseous, literally never. I never woke up feeling sick. I never felt like I needed to throw up. I never had specific cravings. All those pregnancy cravings, I was eating normal. I was craving everything I was normally craving. Nothing was at a specific time. I didn't want a milkshake at 8 o'clock in the morning. None of that. And also, my face never got swollen, and neither did my feet, because I wasn't gaining that much weight, so I never got swollen. Fast forward, come mid-October, the only thing of concern was my weight gain. Again, I put it in quotes because it took a very long time for me to even notice I was gaining weight. And it wasn't because I wasn't fitting any clothes, it wasn't because I had a huge belly. It was mainly because I was just feeling like sluggish, and really, I just kept repeating that I didn't feel like myself. So go to part 2 to find out how I ended up in California. Okay, this is part 2, and if you don't know what's going on, my name is Kaya, I'm 23 years old, and this is the story on how I didn't know I was pregnant until my 3rd trimester. In part 1, I kind of leave off explaining how I felt not myself, I was feeling sluggish, and my weight gain. So because of that, I decided to come home and handle all my doctor's appointments because I couldn't do that in Hawaii. So I wanted to come home and see my doctors, my dentists, and do all my regular checkups. Prior to any of my appointments, I do want to say that I did go out on Halloween. I went out with all my friends. I was dressed up as a Bratz doll, wearing 6-inch heels, miniskirt, crop top, all that. For those of you who follow me on TikTok, you probably realized that the last thing I posted was my Halloween get ready with me. A couple days after Halloween, I had my first doctor's appointment. Again, I'm going to the doctor's appointment assuming that it's just going to be a regular checkup. When I get there, they take all my usual vitals and then they have me do a urine test. As I was sitting there, the doctor eventually came back and she was like, hey, I just want to let you know everything is good and normal, but your urine test did come out positive for pregnancy. You could only imagine how much shock I was in. Like, just imagine getting that news that unexpectedly. I already was in complete utter shock. So much shock, actually, to the point where I turned completely pale. My hands were clammy, I started sweating, and the doctor actually had to hold me upright because I was about to faint. After that, I said no words. She continued to get a very small ultrasound machine that was connected to a speaker. She put a little bit of gel on my belly, held the ultrasound to my belly, and through the speaker, I heard a heartbeat. And in that exact moment is when everything changed. This is part 3 of me finding out I was pregnant in my 3rd trimester. For most people, finding out you're pregnant is considered a very happy thought. And at this point, I was really, really scared. And every single emotion you could ever think of was just flowing through my head. So at this current moment in time, I know that I am pregnant, but how pregnant am I? When am I going back to Hawaii? Do I have to cancel my flight? How do I tell my mom how this doctor's appointment went? Like, there's a million and trillion of questions going through my mind. Leaving the doctor's office, I was walking to my car in complete silence. I called my best friend Nat and told her, and at this point I'm like, Nat, I can't tell my mom, like, what do I do? She was like, you have to tell your mom, calm down, we don't know what's happening yet. So she was trying to calm me down. It didn't really work, but the thought was there. And then I eventually, before I started driving, I called my mom, and I completely lost it. I was bawling, crying so hard to the point where she actually couldn't even understand a single word I was saying. She thought I was not okay, like that I was dying on the side of the road. So actually, when she found out and heard clearly that I said I was pregnant, she was in complete relief, which ended up making me relieved that she was relieved, but again, still fucking stressed out. This whole day, the doctor's appointment, the talk with my mom was really just the start of my emotional depletion. Like, I will explain how traumatic this was for me emotionally, but this doctor's appointment day was really the last day I kept in contact with anyone besides my mom and my 2 friends, Nat and Cass, and even that, I didn't talk to them that much. And I'll go into more detail, but this was really the day everything started going down bad for me. The next day, the following day, was my first ultrasound, mind you, my first ultrasound in my entire 7 months of pregnancy, which was insane. But this ultrasound took way longer than it should have because I actually passed out like 3 times. Just the whole feeling of like the warm gel going on my belly, the machine, all the noises was like really hitting me that I was fucking pregnant, and that just like caused the reason why I passed out 3 times. Laying on the bed, it was really difficult for me to even look at the screen because my body, mind, everything was in complete shock. Like, I was frozen. I probably wasn't even blinking. I definitely wasn't saying any words. So I pretty much was just listening, and the lady ended up telling me that she is a girl. She told me the gender, and then this is when she told me that I was in fact 32 weeks pregnant. And in this moment, I had no idea what the hell 32 weeks pregnant meant, but I just knew that 32 was a really large number in my mind. Leaving the ultrasound is when everything finally clicked in my head, and when I finally allowed myself to understand that I was in my 3rd trimester of my unexpected pregnancy, which meant, by the way, that for the past 7 months, I had no idea I was carrying a child in me. This is officially part 5 of me finding out I was pregnant in my 3rd trimester. After being admitted in the hospital, I ended up spending 10 entire days and nights in the hospital. And those 10 days was when everything got really extremely difficult for me. I'm gonna try my best to explain my emotions as best as possible, but that was truly the hardest thing I have ever gone through. That it's honestly really hard for me to even explain how I felt. in the way that I felt it so you guys can understand the best way as possible, but I'm going to try my best. Every single day, whether I was home or at the hospital, I just tried to avoid the whole fact that I was pregnant. I really did. And I tried to avoid the fact that my whole previous life was over, honestly. Like, I was trying to mourn the fact that my dream life was over, but it was really hard. There was some points in the hospital, I was dead ass on Southwest trying to find flights back to Hawaii. Like, who the fuck did I think I was? But at this point, now that I'm in the hospital and now that it's been a couple days of not saying anything, not posting anything on social media, not answering any calls, this is when my friends and my family started to reach out a lot. Like, if not multiple times. If they weren't reaching out to me, they were reaching out to my sister, my roommates in Hawaii, and my mom. And my mom pretty much had to ignore everyone too. And instead of just explaining what the hell I was going through and what was happening to my friends and family, I just said nothing at all and ignored them. Literally, if you go in my text chain, it's just text and no response. My call log was missed call, missed call, missed call, missed call. Throughout these 10 days in the hospital, I was getting steroid shots up my fucking ass and my arm. Every couple hours, I was getting injections in my legs to prevent blood clots because I couldn't leave my bed. I was strapped to my hospital bed. And also constant, I don't know what kind of fluids, but constant fluids always through my IVs. Like, I was poked everywhere. I literally had wires through my arms. And truly, I didn't care what they were putting in me or what they were poking me with. I just wanted to be okay enough to leave this fucking hospital. Aside from finding out I was pregnant 5 days before being strapped to this damn bed, I was confided to a tiny little fucking hospital room on a tiny little bed with a window to my right and a bathroom in front of me. If you ask me, that is literally depression in 4 walls. I can confidently say that I was crying more tears than more words that were coming out of my mouth. And me being the biggest believer of everything happens for a reason, anything before this moment in my life, anything that happened that made me sad, everything that I thought was difficult, I was always like, it's okay, this is happening for a reason, you just don't know it yet. But this was really, really hard for me to understand what the hell this exact reason could have been. Like, okay, this is happening, but what the fuck is the reason? Why me? Why now? Why this way? I was so depressed that the doctors ended up giving me papers and stacks of mental health resources. Every time they came in, they asked me if I wanted to talk to a psychiatrist, therapist, anything. And I was like, me? What do you mean I'm depressed? I was just living my fucking dream life. I loved my life. And now all of a sudden I'm like depressed. It was really hard for me to swallow the pill that I was depressed. I couldn't understand that. Normally, I'm a really, really happy person, and I was just out on Halloween laughing with my friends, and now I'm being told that I'm depressed. None of that made any sense to me, again, aside from the fact, too, that I just found out I was pregnant. With that being said, I was so depressed being in the hospital that I actually signed against medical advice to leave the hospital. So I signed to get discharged from the hospital, even though the doctors and nurses didn't want me to leave. I didn't give a fuck.
Also,
this is officially part 5 of me finding out I was pregnant in my 3rd trimester. After being admitted in the hospital, I ended up spending 10 entire days and nights in the hospital. And those 10 days was when everything got really extremely difficult for me. I'm gonna try my best to explain my emotions as best as possible, but that was truly the hardest thing I have ever gone through, that it's honestly really hard for me to even explain how I felt in the way that I felt it so you guys can understand the best way as possible, but I'm going to try my best. Every single day, whether I was home or at the hospital, I just tried to avoid the whole fact that I was pregnant. I really did. And I tried to avoid the fact that my whole previous life was over, honestly. Like, I was trying to mourn the fact that my dream life was over, but It was really hard. There was some points in the hospital I was dead ass on Southwest trying to find flights back to Hawaii. Like, who the fuck did I think I was? But at this point, now that I'm in the hospital and now that it's been a couple days of not saying anything, not posting anything on social media, not answering any calls, this is when my friends and my family started to reach out a lot. Like, if not multiple times. If they weren't reaching out to me, they were reaching out to my sister, my roommates in Hawaii, and my mom. And my mom pretty much had to ignore everyone too. And instead of just explaining what the hell I was going through and what was happening to my friends and family, I just said nothing at all and ignored them. Literally, if you go in my text chain, it's just text and no response. My call log was missed call, missed call, missed call, missed call. Throughout these 10 days in the hospital, I was getting steroid shots up my fucking ass and my arm. Every couple hours, I was getting injections in my legs to prevent blood clots because I couldn't leave my bed. I was strapped to my hospital bed. And also constant, I don't know what kind of fluids, but constant fluids always through my IVs. Like, I was poked everywhere. I literally had wires through my arms. And truly, I didn't care what they were putting in me or what they were poking me with. I just wanted to be okay enough to leave this fucking hospital. Aside from finding out I was pregnant 5 days before being strapped to this damn bed, I was confided to a tiny little fucking hospital room on a tiny little bed with a window to my right and a bathroom in front of me. If you ask me, that is literally depression in 4 walls. I can confidently say that I was crying more tears than more words that were coming out of my mouth. And me being the biggest believer of everything happens for a reason, anything before this moment in my life, anything that happened that made me sad, everything that I thought was difficult, I was always like, it's okay, this is happening for a reason, you just don't know it yet. But this was really, really hard for me to understand what the hell this exact reason could have been. Like, okay, this is happening, but what the fuck is the reason? Why me? Why now? Why this way? I was so depressed that the doctors ended up giving me papers and stacks of mental health resources. Every time they came in, they asked me if I wanted to talk to a psychiatrist, therapist, anything. And I was like, me, what do you mean I'm depressed? I was just living my fucking dream life. I loved my life. And now all of a sudden I'm like depressed. It was really hard for me to swallow the pill that I was depressed. I couldn't understand that. Normally, I'm a really, really happy person, and I was just out on Halloween laughing with my friends, and now I'm being told that I'm depressed. None of that made any sense to me, again, aside from the fact, too, that I just found out I was pregnant. With that being said, I was so depressed being in the hospital that I actually signed against medical advice to leave the hospital. So I signed to get discharged from the hospital, even though the doctors and nurses didn't want me to leave. I didn't give a fuck. Okay guys, thanks for waiting. Here is finally part 6. At this point, I finally left the hospital and I came home. Again, I left the hospital on my terms because I couldn't handle it anymore and I just wanted to be at home. While I spent all this time at home, I was only in my room. The only time I ever left my room was to use the bathroom. I didn't even turn on the light switch in my room. All I had on was my TV. And if there's any of you guys who've felt really sad or even depressed, you know that moving and getting up and doing stuff for yourself is not even in the picture. So with that being said, my mom came in my room every single day to make sure I was eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and giving me water and everything I needed to nourish me and my child. If it wasn't for my mom, I would have sent myself in a deeper spiral. Now, looking back, the only words I've ever said to my mom during the time I was in this room of dungeon was probably only thank you every time she dropped off the food. I didn't have like a full-on conversation with her, and she was just there to support me because she knew I was going through like the hardest time. In this room, time had never felt so slow. Every day, I already wanted it to be the next day. I spent majority of my time sleeping because when I was asleep, I was dreaming. I woke up, I was immediately reminded by reality. While I was in this room, I just had to find things to kill 24 hours every single day. So I pretty much just spent my entire time watching the Kardashians, Secret Life of Mormon Wives. I was playing Sorting Goods on my iPad. And I really spent a lot of time on TikTok and YouTube watching everybody's Vlogmas. So thank God it was during Christmas. Okay, fast forward to all the time in this dungeon room. Christmas Day finally came. And you know how every year Christmas rolls around, you always say, this year didn't even feel like Christmas. This year did not even feel like Christmas at all. So this year, unfortunately, Christmas Day was just another day I was just trying to pass in this very dungeon room. Here's where things really start to get crazy. Christmas night rolls along and my mom comes in my room to bring me my Christmas dinner. As I move the tray and I sit up to start eating, I felt the urge to pee, like really bad. So I move my food and I walk to the bathroom and I go to use the bathroom. When I'm using the bathroom, I notice that I'm bleeding again. Last time it was like a period. This time it was just a little bit more. So I started to get really concerned. So I screamed to my mom and I told her I was bleeding, and she reassured me that we're gonna be fine and that I just need to rinse off and start packing my bag for the hospital. And at this point is when I really start freaking out, but I try to keep calm because I just remember the doctors and the nurses telling me, like, if you're bleeding or if you don't feel the baby urge, to go to the hospital. The star of the show just wants to say what's up. Any sort of bleeding during pregnancy is scary. So at this point, I'm thinking so many things and I'm freaking out. But I pack my bag, I finish rinsing off, and me and my mom hop in the car to head to the hospital.